Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Merrillville Town Council for today, Tuesday, October 11th at just after 6:30. Please stand for our invocation and then followed by a moment of silence. And during our moment of silence, I'm going to ask our clerk treasurer to also say some words about Kurt Walton. We lost an employee here from the clerk's office, and she'll fill us in on that. Thank you.
Let us pray. Oh, good God, we give you thanks for each new day, for the opportunities that we have to serve, whether in official capacities or just being helpful in our community. We ask for your blessings upon us as we seek to serve you faithfully by helping others and by doing good. We thank you for this time and for your blessing through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Kelly?
I'd ask for everybody to take a moment of silence for Kurt Walton. He was an associate pastor and the only male in our office. And as such, he was such a generous and kind soul to us. He really took care of the ladies, and they're all in the back. They're really grieving his passing and his loss. Kurt is going to be missed. He leaves behind his granddaughter, who he loved fiercely and was all over his desk, as well as his daughters, Kirsten, Kennedy, Nicole, and his son, Kyle. And we would just ask that you would take a moment of silence in remembering him. Thank you.
Thank you all. Please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Are there veterans in the audience this evening? Pledge allegiance. Mr. Hardaway.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk Treasurer, please call the roll.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Spann. Present. Mr. Hardaway, good evening. Good evening. Present. Good evening, Mr. Minchuk.
I'm here, thank you.
Good evening, Mrs. Uzelak.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Pettit.
Good evening.
And good evening, Mr. White.
What a good evening. Thank you.
And good evening, Mr. Bella.
Thank you. Good evening.
All seven present.
All seven present. We have a quorum. Moving on tonight to petitions, communications, acknowledgements, and remonstrations. We have a letter of recommendation from our town manager, Pat Reardon, regarding strategic plan consulting firm. Mr. Reardon.
Thank you, Council President Bella. As the council is aware, the development team published a request for proposals. And after review of those proposals, it is the consensus of the development team that the town award the bid to RDG Planning and Design. They are the most reasonable and responsive bidder. Our recommendation, again, is that the bid be awarded to RDG Planning and Design in a lump sum amount not to exceed $216,225.
I'll entertain a motion to that.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. White with a second by Mr. Hardaway to approve the recommendation for RDG Planning and Design for our comprehensive plan. The amount's not to exceed $216,225. Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, Mr. Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Moving on to the letter of recommendation from Kathy Pettit and Pat Reardon regarding the 2022-2023 health insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Bella. In lieu of a letter, We had a executive session meeting. The purpose of that meeting was to discuss and finalize health insurance options for the town in 2023. At this point, I will defer to the council.
No, this is okay. We do it here, Richard.
Go ahead, Pat.
As I said, we met in executive session and looked at various options, and it's the consensus to go with, to stay with, to renew our current plan. To renew our current plan with United Healthcare with an option, and Mr. Hardaway has the specifics on that motion and the cost of that plan as well.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Hardaway?
Say it again.
Both the numbers in the insurance plan.
Oh, $285,503 for this year's plan, next year's plan, effective January. This is what we will be, under my committee later, I'll make the motion that we approve it.
Okay.
It's the renewal of United Healthcare plan, is what it is.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, I'm sure everyone's noticed some of our T-shirts we're wearing in recognition of National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Mr. Hardaway?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like for Mrs. Evelyn Thomas to come forward, please.
Hey, we say, Council.
Hey, how's it going? All right. On behalf of the town of Merrillville, we would like to present the American Cancer Society this donation of $500 for your breast cancer walk that is coming this Sunday from when to when.
Time you need?
Go ahead.
The walk begins at noon. The park opens for participants at 11, and we will be there until everyone has walked, and then we have a closing ceremony, which is around 2
That's at the fairground.
at the fairground.
So thank you, and they've been doing this for over 23 years.
Well,
And-
I've been participating for
For
over 23 years. They were
years, yeah.
around a little longer before me.
Right. But we just want you to know that we appreciate it, and I'm quite sure that almost everybody in this room has been impacted by someone with breast cancer. And so we just want to do our part to encourage you guys to keep doing what you're doing and to let you know that the town of Merrillville stands behind you in this endeavor. You can, that's the real check. We give you this one, so you can, yes, ma'am, you take that with you.
Take a picture with this.
You take that with you, and that's the one that you send to to Atlanta, I think it is.
I'll hand this over to our coordinator.
Thank you very much.
And I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you so much for supporting us. To me, it's a noble cause. I'm a 26-year survivor, and I've been with them for about 23 years, working with them. And it's just a wonderful event. I lost my mom to breast cancer, so it runs in my family, and I'm sure most of you know someone or have lost someone to it. But any support at all, we are so grateful. Thank you so very much. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. White?
I also want to add, and I appreciate the lady getting the $500. We actually had a breast cancer walk this past Saturday that was really well attended. I think I mentioned it last week at our last meeting. And I want to also recognize the Northwest Indiana Women Empowerment that put on that event, and just want that recognition because there were some breast cancer survivors out there. And we thought it was something good to do. As a matter of fact, if you see some of those pictures, it's not probably really me in those pictures, but it really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Well spent.
Moving on tonight to the consent agenda, we have the accounts payable register voucher for October 11th. We have the approval of the town council meeting minutes from September 13th and September 27th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak with a second by Mr. Pettit. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to standing and special committee reports, budget and finance, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Later on in the meeting, we will be approving the 2023 budget for the town. That's all I have.
Thank you. Council Affairs, Mr. Pettit.
No report.
Public Works and Utilities, Mr. Minchuk.
Everything's still ongoing at this time. Hopefully, we'll be coming to a conclusion of all the things we've been going over at the street department here over the next couple of weeks.
Great. Elections, Public Relations, and Town Beautification, Mr. Pettit.
We have a general election coming up on, I believe it's November 8th.
November 11th.
November 8th, dear.
Eighth.
It's always the second
Second
Tuesday
Tuesday.
after the first Monday.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
I should know that, goodness.
Anyway, there is an election November 8th. So I would encourage everyone to obviously go out and vote this year. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. White.
Yes, I think we should still talk about elections that we just currently held. I think that the message that I tried to get out, I think kind of went over people's head last night. I just want to tell the community that we held an election last night, and I talked to our county chair, Mr. Weezer, and I told Mr. Weezer that I thought what he was doing was totally corrupt, and I'm not taking it back.
All right, Leonard.
No,
that's
no,
good.
you can't do that.
Yes, we
This is
can.
my minutes. This is my
We don't
minutes.
talk about precinct organization.
Okay, I'm
up
going to
here
finish this
during the town
conversation
council
here.
meeting.
You can't
I'm
interrupt
going to
me.
rule you out of order, Leonard. I'm sorry.
Based on what? I'm
Based
exercising my
on it's not
First
on the agenda,
Amendment
it's
right.
not part of Sean's
But-
report.
Okay, parliamentary inquiry
do
then.
that.
Can I do a parliamentary
We have
inquiry?
the attorney right here to,
Parliamentary inquiry for you. This is an attempt to continue to cover up things when they do wrong things. And I just want to let people know that our county chairman, he rigged last night's election. And they tried to zip my mouth just like they're trying to do now.
yeah.
But,
So any lawsuit should be directed directly to Mr. White, not the
yeah,
council as a
and
whole.
any federal lawsuits
Because
should
has
be
nothing to
directed
do with
toward
us.
this county. Yeah, it does have something to do with you because you
Does it?
were one of the persons. That's why I'm saying it. Thank you. Nothing
I
else to
wasn't
add.
anything. I don't know.
Oh, you did a lot. That's it.
Environmental Affairs, Mr. White. Do
Thank
have
you,
a
Mr.
report?
President. I know that with the variants of the COVID out there, the President of the United States, what I said at the last council meeting, said that the pandemic portion of this COVID was over, but COVID is not over itself. I know people still getting it. I know a few people that had it this week. I think you made a statement, there's only a couple of us up here that hasn't had the COVID, so if y'all got it now, just kind of just, keep that to yourself. So in the terms of the environmental affairs, again, our positivity rate is at 15%. I didn't have anything else to add. I think I talked to Marge earlier, and I told her that if she had some things she wanted to add to that, to go ahead. And
The only thing I really have to add is the booster shots are out, and you could get them at any pharmacy or call your doctor. And I think it's very important to get a flu shot also. Walgreens and CVS Pharmacy, they are available. Make an appointment. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sure. Personnel Policy and Employee Benefits, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mr. Reardon alluded to earlier, we had a meeting with Myers and Caleros about our next year's insurance at the cost of $2,285,503. It's the renewal with United Healthcare. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we approve next year's insurance for the said amount.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway with a second by Mr. Pettit to approve the renewal of United Healthcare, which is our health plan for our town employees, $2.285 million. Any other questions or comments on the motion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. White?
How much more was that than in our last budget? Was it 500,000, 250,000? Do you have any idea?
I don't have the exact figure. Did anyone write that down?
0.8%.
It
The difference? Where's Eric?
Eric?
We know the figure, Leonard, I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
It's 2.1.
2.1% increase?
No. No. I think, Eric, we decided it was 2,175,769 is what when Jake was back there.
That's right. That's what I have.
Yeah, that's what I have.
So it's about flat from last year?
It's up $75,000.
$75,000.
$75,000, which he talked about would be a 4% increase in the premium. We went through, Meyer Galeros went through this.
Does that answer your question?
That answers my question.
Any other questions or comments on the renewal?
Yeah, I got one for all the department heads, Mr. President, is that at some point here within the next few weeks, Myers and Galeros will be meeting with all town employees. What we will do, instead of going department by department, we're just gonna bring everyone together at one time here in the chamber for you guys, and then Steve for you guys. They're gonna come to you guys. But Parks will come here, and you guys will go to your place. And we'll bring everybody, courts, clerk treasurer's office, every other office in the building, and just have one meeting, take about an hour. We'll just sit down town hall for that hour. We'll post notes on the door to make sure, so that everybody knows that we are gonna be closed for an hour. Okay?
Yep.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Any other comments on the motion, though? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Public Safety, Mr. Minchuk.
The FOB negotiations are still ongoing, kind of crunching some numbers at this time. So once we come to some kind of finalization, we'll report back. That is all.
Economic Development, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President, later on the agenda, we have a resolution to reissue a tax abatement that was previously issued at the corner of 89th and Mississippi for a development by the Opus Group. I had asked that they come back in. They're in the process of buying the property from the Misner Group. They're in the audience here later on to answer any questions.
Great. Parks and Recreation, Mrs. Uselak.
All the parks are in order. They have all been mowed, and I guess that might be for the end of the season. And the bike trail is looking good, too. All the debris has been picked up, and we have no complaints on it.
Good.
Thank you.
Abandoned and Blighted Properties, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. In light of everything that's been going on throughout the town here the last probably 6 months, Mr. Worden, we're going to schedule a meeting with code enforcement next Monday. Mr. Bell, are you available? It'll be probably, I'd say about 1 o'clock next Monday.
Okay.
That's all I have.
The
Mr.
Dean of
President.
Barbara. Mr. White?
Yes, I'd like to make a statement, and I just want to set the record straight, a public record straight. I got a call from a business owner last week saying that he had some issues with me. And I said, well, what could that be? He says, I get a call and people tell me that you're out here saying that you made me demolish my building. I never said that, Mr. President. And I want the record to reflect that I never said that. I know what the news media put in out there. And once I explained to him how he says, well, how did you think I got this information? I said, well, I know where it came from, but I'm just saying that's not true. He says, nobody can make me do anything, not even my dad. And I said, Mr., I'm not going to say his name. I said, but that did not come out that way. So I just want the record to reflect publicly that we supported Mr. Individual that tore down the nursing home. We supported that. So
Is that what you're talking about, the old nursing home building?
I am, because I got a call from him a couple of
Okay, I didn't
days
know what
ago.
you were even
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
I tried to not go there and call names out, but at the end of the day,
Well, if you want to set the record straight, we need to offer specifics. Otherwise, the record won't be straight.
Okay, I got a call
Be
from
even
Mr.
more confused.
Sure.
you know.
I got a call from Mr. Tony Williams, the owner of the Chateau, and he's made a statement as, Councilman White, I got a bone to pick with you because I understand that you're telling people that you made me shut that building down, and I never made. That building was sitting there for 10 years, but I can definitely tell you this, with Sheila being part of it, that we worked on that to help him to get that done. So we just kind of encouraged him to do it. We didn't make anybody do anything. We can't make anybody do anything. It was up there for 10 years. So that's the public record. I think that the Times actually put an article in the paper. That's my public statement. So, thank
Yeah,
you.
Probably in the future, I would suggest talking to the reporter who,
Yeah. No, I wanted to talk to the council because this is
Okay.
where some of it come from.
Okay.
So I
got
just
a
want to
big
make sure.
agenda, though. Do you mind if we move on?
Well, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Dean and Barbara White Community Center, Mr. Pettit.
Mr. President, we'll have another meeting the fourth Thursday in October, which I can't get my calendar up right now, but it's, I want to say that's going to be the 27th
It is.
of
27th.
October. Thank you. And Torrance is not here. If you would let him know, and we'll get Jeff and Leonard and I, anyone else who wants to attend. Gentlemen, is 5 o'clock okay?
Sure.
All right.
May I also ask you, Mr. President, I don't know this young man here, so
I do not know him either, so.
what's your name, bro?
James Sanders, Park Department.
Oh, that's
Okay.
James. I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, I know. This was last minute. I would have beautified myself a little better.
Right.
You know, but it was last minute, so I'm here.
Okay.
So,
No, I just never met you before, so I just want to.
oh, okay, yeah, formally introduce ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How you doing,
Thank
Councilman
you.
White? All right, nice to meet you.
Also,
He looks like Sidney Poitier.
I won't go that far.
That's good.
but-
Anything else, Mr. Pettit?
That's all.
It's well, no, it's good.
Special Projects Committees, Food and Beverage Tax, Diversity, 4th of July celebration. Mr. Hardaway.
At this time, Mr. President, we are still in the process of formulating plans for our Christmas tree lighting. Need to come up with a date for a meeting here pretty quick because we're right in the middle of October right now. And next month sometime, probably the Friday after Thanksgiving would be the ideal time to have a Christmas tree lighting.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I'll schedule a meeting and I'll pull some people together so that we can do that.
Mr. Hardaway, do you mind if we talk about the trick or treat hours for this year so we can get that out?
Thank you for bringing it up.
Sure.
Yeah, I think last year we went 5:30 to 7:30.
Right.
My motion is that we do trick or treating hours from 5:30 to 7:30 on October 31st.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Hardaway to continue trick or treating from 5:30 to 7:30 on the 31st. Second by Mr. Minchuk. Open for discussion. Mr. White.
How old do you have to be not to trick or treat? Because you got some grown people going to be knocking on doors.
Yeah, we don't set an age limit. We let people decide that themselves.
Okay.
Leonard, you can trick or treat if you
Thank
want.
you. That's what I was looking for.
I know that's what you're looking for.
Yes, okay. That's it, Mr. President.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hardaway. Lake County Solid Waste Management District, Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I don't have a report from the Lake County Solid Waste District because they were going to have a meeting this Thursday, but they couldn't come up with a quorum, so we'll be probably meeting in the early December. Additionally, Mr. President, being at the Lake County Solid Waste District, I just wanted to let the public know that we are having a cleanup from 57th and Broadway down to Hidden Lake. We're going to have 20 Merrillville school children. We're also going to have Nexus staffing out there helping us. I guess they liked me enough to ask me to come talk to their students at school in the environmental class and some STEM classes. So
Well, that's
I just want to let you know I'm doing environmental things. I love it. Thank you.
Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, Mr. Hardaway.
We haven't met, Mr. President, since the last meeting.
Okay, Stormwater Management Resources, any report from Matt tonight? Pat?
No, sir.
South Shore Visitors and Convention Authority, our representative is Mr. Reardon.
No formal report, sir.
Fire Territory Board, Mr. Minchuk.
They have no meetings scheduled anytime soon.
Department reports. Sheila Shine, Planning and Building.
I'll just defer to the large gathering and BZA later
Okay.
on in the meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. President, wait, Sheila. I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. We had a historical event take place in the town of Merrillville this week, and I'm very proud of Sheila, Steve, Pat, Angie, Matt, Ed Yurga, Chief Catino, the entire staff. We issued a permit for a million square foot building at the silos at Sanders Farm for $325,000 in building permit fees. Has to be a record in the 50 years we've been incorporated. They are aggressive. In fact, I ran into Matt Cruz tonight. They're ready to go with walls the first week of February, and they're not slowing down. So Sheila, to your staff, Steve, Pat, everybody, fantastic job in getting that permit issued. That's unbelievable. We are the first, and I see Don Kolobowski in the audience back there from Lake County Economic Alliance. There's not a 1 million square foot building in Lake County at all. We're the first ones to get that. So that's a feather in our cap.
For sure.
Sheila's too shy to say all that.
Mr. King, Public Works Department.
I'll make this brief. Our 2022 paving program, we're continuing in Ward 2. Hopefully the concrete work in Ward 2 will be wrapped up by the end of next week. There is a cement shortage going on right now, so we're having problems getting concrete for our curbs and sidewalks that we are working on, but they are getting done. The Broadway sidewalk project right out here on the other side of the street from Town Hall. We're waiting on some new light poles to come in. They're weeks and weeks out. Hopefully they'll be here soon and we can get that project wrapped up. We're also going to petition NDOT. Sean, you know this.
Yes.
The building across the street, there's a pond a small pond in front of the building. Then Councilman Pettis has asked that we get some fencing put up there like we have along Broadway. I petitioned that to NDOT today to see if they'll participate in the 80% funding of that. I don't have an answer as of yet. 83rd Avenue, part of our community crossings projects. It's out in the Panhandle. There's final cleanup going on and punch list items, so hopefully that project will be wrapping up here in the next couple weeks. As far as our Public Works Department, the branch pickup has ended for the season. The North Barn at 5750 Tyler is going to remain open until this Friday, at which time it'll be closed for the season because our leaf bag program starts on Monday, October 17th. As far as our new digital speed limit signs, we have 10 of the 14 of them up. We're waiting on locates to install the other 4. Locates that normally are taking 2-3 days are taking weeks to get now. That's why we're waiting on them. It's the 14 new sign, 16 new signs have been ordered, so we'll wait on them. The first ones took quite a while. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll see the new ones coming in. That's all I got.
Mr. President, if I could,
Pettit.
I'd like to make a motion as RDC president that as a backup plan, Steve, if NDOT does not honor the change order request, that we take the money out of the Broadway TIF and have Steve install the fence on the pond across the street from us here. That's my motion, Mr. President. That would be a backup plan, Steve.
I think they.
Just
they
in
will.
case.
I think they
We know NDOT.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion?
No discussion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President?
Mr. White.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to address this to Steve. Thank you, Steve, for getting the the speed signs up there. It really does.
Oh, you're welcome.
Are very noticeable. But I have a little criticism too right now because Don Spann has been waiting on his streets since last year. And nothing's being done.
So we're talking about the speed limit signs now, Rick?
I know we're talking about, I was talking to him though.
Okay.
And that's why I said, Mr. President, this is directed to
What street, Councilman White?
Don.
Well, you're supposed to be doing 63rd since you didn't want to do 63rd place. You know, you had a little bug up your ass about it, which I didn't appreciate.
So what I'm trying to say is that I want to see Mr. Spann be treated the same way that you got council people that get $2 and $3 million worth of work, and he's not even getting $20,000 worth of
He
work.
does get treated the same way,
He doesn't.
Mr. White. Yeah,
Well,
exactly, he does.
Can I, we've
Your
talked about
information
this.
is inaccurate, sir.
We've,
not
we've-
inaccurate.
No, it is.
We've talked
it
about
wasn't.
this several times.
Right.
It was supposed to get paved last year, but Indiana American Water
Right.
was gonna do a water main project. So
Yeah.
in my capacity, I didn't feel it was right to waste town money to pave the road if Indiana American was gonna tear the road up. They were gonna pave it this year. They decided not to. It will get paved before the end of the season. I've explained that several times. I've explained to the resident, Ms. Julia Adamo. I've explained that to her twice. I mean, I don't know what,
I just want to see it get done.
it's gonna get done. I don't know what, I mean, I don't know what else you want me to do.
I do know that the asphalt companies, they shut down after a certain time,
Yeah.
so you gotta have the asphalt to get
After
it done.
after Thanksgiving.
Right.
So I just want to bring that up, Don.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. You know, I got Ms. O'Donnell, who's the third person in my ward to get a house in Ward 1. She's been there 40-something years. I think she deserves that street, but you don't seem to be doing anything about it.
Okay.
So I appreciate that you do something over there, because I got some bad streets. You said you do West 63rd Avenue. I haven't seen
I've spoke to Ms. Adamo twice about her street. She called me personally, and I explained the same thing, and I assured her that's gonna get done. I explained the whole situation to her.
I would have loved to have heard you talk to her, and you assured her that.
I
Would love
did,
to have heard that.
twice.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes, two things for you, Steve. One is, since we know that we got these new 14, 16 new signs coming.
Yes.
Speed limit
Yep.
signs coming, can we go ahead now and have the council people identify the locations, so we can start getting the locations
Sure.
done? So then whenever we get the speed limit signs in, we can just go ahead and erect them?
Yeah, just give me a list. We'll get a list together and just give it to me, and we'll start working on the
I
locations.
gave mine to
for that.
Steve last week after one of my constituents recommended, so I'm getting 73rd Avenue in Delaware.
Okay, well, but I'm
Right,
just
Steve?
saying that's what we need to do. So if it's taking a long time to get the
It is.
locates.
It is.
And secondly, I guess, I heard you say that the branch pickup is over for the year.
Yes.
I would implore you to make one more pass through the north end, please, because there's branches, as I ride through there now, there's still branches that's sitting at people's curb, and they're not gonna move them.
Okay,
And so when you guys come through with the leaf fact next week, they're gonna still be there.
gotcha.
So if you could make just one more pass this week, and we could make that the last pass. But if any more shows up after this week, then it'll be a code enforcement issue, and we'll let code enforcement take care of it. But if you can make one more pass through Meadowdale, Meadowland,
Yep.
and Georgia Heights, I would appreciate it, so that whatever's out there lingering, let's go ahead and get it taken care of. And I'll give you my two locates, because they'll be on the east side, over probably on, I would say, Georgia Street right now. Probably going south on Georgia. Starting right around probably 54th Avenue.
Maybe you could talk to him after the meeting, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, Councilman.
I will.
Okay,
So
so we can move on.
Oh, and thank you, Steve, for
I'm getting
bigger
frowned, so I guess I'm done.
Steve picked up, 3.
A big agenda here, guys.
Steve, thank
Trying to
you
keep it
for
going.
Bigger street.
You're welcome, Marge. You're welcome.
Thanks, Steve.
I've got your note here, Mr. Hardaway.
Appreciate it.
Chief Cretino, Police Department. Report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of things I'd like to cover. One, tomorrow being the 12th of October, we're going to be partnering with the Sheriff's Department and some other police departments. Every month, we pick a particular area in each town or city and attack that location with problem situations. Tomorrow is going to be our day here in Merrillville. I'm not going to disclose our location, but it's going to be a job well needed and going to be addressed. Also, I would like to say thank you for the new AED traffic signals. That's an excellent tool that we can use. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Anything to add, Pat, from your department?
On behalf of Economic Development Director Chilcott, as Councilman Pettit mentioned, we have a final resolution, confirmatory resolution before the council tonight for its consideration, Opus Development along Mississippi Street. That's it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk Treasurer?
Earlier, I wanted to get the meeting started, so I neglected to say that Pastor Kurt Walton's services are going to be held Friday, October 21st. At St. John Baptist Church, visitation begins at 9 a.m., family hours between 10 and 11 a.m. The funeral is at 11 a.m. I'd like for my employees in the back to stand. The repast will be held at the Dean and Barbara White Center, our own Dean and Barbara White Center, after the funeral. And they're all here really mourning Pastor Walton. He brought God with him to our office every day and was an excellent employee. We only had him since last August, so we didn't have him long enough. But he was a loyal employee at the Calumet Township Trustee's office for over 20 years. And I just wanted everybody to know that the Clerk Treasurer's office would be closed so that all of my employees can attend his services on next Friday, the 21st. And also for the employees here, the lady who does your payroll and makes sure you get paid every week is Kurt's family. So if you could please reach out to Robin Johnson and give her your condolences, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Kelly. Moving on tonight to general orders. We have first reading ordinances. Ordinance 22-21 is currently tabled. It's on the agenda for your consideration.
Mr. President,
Mr. Hardaway.
I'd like to make a motion that we untable ordinance number 22-21 at this time.
Second.
Is that a second, Leonard?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway with a second by Mr. White to remove from the table ordinance 22-21 for discussion this evening. Any questions on the motion to remove from the table? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Councilman Span?
I have nothing to say.
Move on.
Okay.
Are you
passing?
Span?
Councilman Hardaway?
Yes.
Councilman Minchuk?
Yes.
Councilwoman Uzelak?
Yes.
Councilman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
Councilman Span, am I coming back to you?
Yes.
Okay. 7 yes. I'm sorry. President Bella, how did I forget you?
Mine's an aye vote, too.
Okay.
7-0, motion carries. We will now hear ordinance 22-21 on first reading. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville, Lake County, Indiana, amending ordinances 2217, 2209, 2129, and pay for employees of the town of Merrillville for the calendar year 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway. Chair will recognize Mrs. Uzelak for the second. In your packets, there's a highlighted area. These are raises for the clerk treasurer's office employees. The new figures are there highlighted in yellow, and those will be for the remainder of this ordinance. Questions or comments on the motion? Chief?
Mr. President,
Sir.
he wanted to share something dealing with the Parks Department when you get a chance. You didn't get
Oh,
a
I am
chance to
so
address it.
sorry. Not seeing Torrance, I'll come back to you, sir.
Yeah, you forgot about me.
I sure did. I'm not used to seeing you sitting there. Thank you, we'll come back. Any questions or comments on this first reading ordinance? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Span? Councilman Hardaway? Councilman Minchuk?
Yes.
Councilwoman Yuzlak?
Yes.
Councilman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
President Bella?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
7-0. Thank you, motion carries. Attorney Svetnov, can we read this on second reading tonight, since it involves some pay for employees? It'd be nice to get it finished.
Yes,
Doesn't need to be advertised, right?
No, it doesn't need to be advertised. We've done it before.
No.
Most times we
You can
do.
go ahead if you get a unanimous vote from the
Right.
council.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to hear this on second reading.
Motion, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. White, second by Mr. Span, to read this on second reading. Ordinance 22-21. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Councilman Span?
Aye.
Councilman Hardaway?
Yep.
Councilman Minchuk?
Yes.
Councilwoman Yuzlak?
Yes.
Councilman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
And President Bella.
Aye. We'll
7-0.
read this on second reading tonight, ordinance 22-21. It's an ordinance adjusting pays and salaries in the clerk treasurer's office for all employees. Is there a motion?
So,
Second.
A motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval on second reading. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, any public comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Span?
Yes.
Councilman Hardaway? Councilman Minchuk?
Yes.
Councilwoman Yuzlak?
Yes.
Councilman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
President Bella?
Yes.
7-0.
7-0, motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on tonight to ordinance 22-24. It's a flood damage prevention ordinance, Town of Merrillville. It actually replaces an old ordinance we had on the books, which was ordinance 15-21. So that's 2015, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Anything to add to this, Pat, for Matt?
Yes, I do. Thank you. On behalf of Merrillville Stormwater, Matt is asking that the council consider passing this ordinance this evening. So the purpose of this ordinance is for flood hazard areas in compliance with the minimum participating criteria for the National Flood Insurance Program. This ordinance incorporates the minimum federal regulations governing community participation in the National Flood Insurance Program and state floodplain regulations regarding development in special flood hazard areas. Additionally, it includes some generally accepted construction practices regarding fill and provides some suggested enhancements for consideration.
Thank you, Pat. Does this also affect property owners' insurance?
Yes.
It does, yeah.
To the good.
Right. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit with a second by Mrs. Uselak for approval of ordinance 22-24. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing. Yes. Yeah.
Certain areas.
Right.
Correct.
No, it's the first reading. Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call.
Councilman Span?
Yes.
Councilman Hardaway? Councilman Minchuk?
Yes.
Councilwoman Yuzlak?
Yes.
Councilman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
And President Bella.
Yes.
7-0.
7-0, motion carries. We'll have copies for you so you can take it home and read it. It is quite the read. You can have my copy. Thank you, I'll get to it. Moving on tonight to second reading ordinances. We have ordinance 22-19. It's the ordinance of the Town of Merrillville amending Town Ordinance 94-05 entitled An Ordinance of the Town of Merrillville, Lake County, Indiana, for establishment of the Merrillville Town Court as it pertains to the closure of Merrillville Town Court and the orderly transition of cases and repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mr. President,
Mr. White,
I just wanted to say, I think people know
we're waiting for a motion so we can open it up for discussion. Do you have a motion, or did you want to just?
I do have a motion. I like to see this thing repealed. That's my motion. But I know it doesn't work that way, but at the end of the day,
I'm waiting for a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 22-19, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk. Open for discussion. Mr. White.
no, I was just saying, I know we were going back and forth with, whether the town should keep this court thing open. And I think the community know what my position is. I think that when you have people that have senior citizens that can't make it to another location because we're closing this court, my position is going to be that I still can't support it closing the court. So that's my position. Thank
Any
you.
other discussion on this?
Mr. President, do you have
Mr. Hardaway.
numbers to justify?
Well, I don't know if it justifies anything,
Well,
but just the hard numbers.
That
Right
that
from the,
should further explain why we made this tough decision.
yeah, the figures for the court, actually, since 2012, has been in the negative. And the accumulated total right now through September of 2022 is $1,737,755. Last year, the court lost $399,000. This year, it's projected to lose another $368,000. And I think the issue here is not being mean to anybody. It's not personal for this judge, that's for sure, because a lot of these negatives are well before he was actually the judge.
I didn't know the court was here to make money.
It's not here to make money, but the idea when the court was established was, well, the correct terminology would be the net expenditures over revenue.
I'm sorry.
So the expenses,
Comments right
Yeah.
now?
we will when we do a public comment, sure. It was asked a question by a council member, so I'm sharing the information. Is that okay, Judge? It's the numbers. Does that help your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
This is a second reading ordinance. We'll open it up for public comment if there's no other comment from the council. Okay, public comment.
Hold on a second. All right, once again, this is, most everybody knows who I am. I am Gene
Please state your
Velasco.
name and address for the
I
record.
am Gene Velasco, the current judge of the Merrillville Town Court. Now, not long before I got here, in fact, December 10th of 2019, this fine body passed an attempt to close the court. It ultimately went to court because I had to sue them in order to keep it open, and it's been open and continues to be open. Since that litigation, at the current situation, the court, even if they pass the ordinance, the court will remain open until such time as all the cases are transferred. It is estimated that that will take over 2 years. But before they get to vote on any of this, you should know that I sent them 10 points that they needed to consider. The first point was that, and nobody really knew this, that there's a cost to closing the court. Hammond, which was the last, let's say, similar type of situation, they got closed, cost the city of Hammond $700,000 before they could close the court, and ultimately had to put in more money, according to the clerk of the circuit court, that brought their total for closing to nearly $1 million. Now, our court is already in a deficit because there was a theft back in 2012, and money was never replaced by the council. So 350,000, let's say, plus the initial $700,000, it will cost the town of Merrillville nearly $1 million just to close it. In the meantime, Merrillville, the town of Merrillville will have to maintain the operation of the court without any new cases being taken in, just for the purposes of preparing to actually shut it down. Okay, now, there's a lot of programs that we do, not the least of which is obviously the truancy court. Now, the council here passed that ordinance to help benefit the Merrillville School Corporation with issues that we're having with truancy and tardiness and other problems. And so people are brought to court here so that the town court can take care of those things. Once we're closed, that will be gone. If, in addition to that, there is the issue of ordinance, for example. The town of Merrillville will have to acquire an interest in another court that will handle the Merrillville ordinances. The cost of that will include undoubtedly a judicial officer plus office, plus equipment, plus whatever, in order to maintain those cases regarding ordinances, which we will have to pay. Now, all of that's being taken care of now, okay? I mean, that it's not really about the money, and I've said this I don't know how many times. The actual closure physically could not take, as I'm told, it cannot happen before the end of my term, which is next year. And in addition to that, it may require additional time to close, okay? So it's never about the actual expense. The figures that they have and the figures that I have are different because it's like apples and oranges. The court generates far more money than it actually costs or is budgeted. The cost of the court is paid to tax monies. Now, what they want to do is apparently take tax money from the court, which is around $350,000 to $400,000 a year, and shove it off in something else. Now, I am guessing that they're going to use Broadway TIF money to pay out whatever amount it's determined that needs to be inputted by them in order for the court to close. But it's never about making any money. You wouldn't ask, or maybe they would. The community center, $26 million, 12.5 of which will be paid by us because we live here. And if it's not making any money, and remember, they got a big influx, $10 million for the Dean White legacy people. And let's say they didn't have that. Were they going to sell the community center? I doubt that, okay? Now, the fire department, parks department, police department, none of them make any money. They're not meant to make any money. It's just a service for the public. Now, because, and I explained it to them, that because the newest judge in the county division is in Hammond and has the available space to take these cases, it will probably happen, probably I say, that the cases that we have currently and all new filings will be out of Hammond. That is 15 miles away, okay? Now, there is no public transportation. Maybe people can Uber there, I don't know. So it is incumbent upon this body to consider those aspects because legally, it doesn't have to be about money. They have the right to close the court. They cannot dictate the actual date because it'll take whatever time it takes, according to Judge Parent, who heard the litigation. I don't know that, what'll happen. It's up to them. I do have a question for them regarding this being the second reading. I never heard the first reading, so technically, if you're going to do this right and you do not want another legal challenge, this has to be the first reading. The prior reading was an ordinance that they attempted to pass on first reading that said that this court was going to be closed on September 30th. As you know, September 30th came and went, and we're all still here. All right, so technically, that should not be in existence. I did not hear from anybody saying that they were moving to amend the prior ordinance that had a date and substitute this language for that. In fact, I don't even have the language, and I don't think any of you do either. But yet here we are discussing this ordinance in blank. So
Well,
that's a-
like every agenda and packets, they're posted on the town website. This has been out in the public view since last Friday, which is
Okay, but this
when we
is the
post
fir-
everything.
This is the first reading of this thing, right?
Well, this is just a amended ordinance of the first one that we read and passed,
Okay? I
based
didn't
on
hear-
Judge Parent's.
But I did not hear anybody move to amend the existing, the prior ordinance to substitute the language that's in there. So, some of these gentlemen and ladies may or may not be here next election, okay? Some of them by choice, some of them by our choice. So it's just something to consider. Anybody has any questions? I'll be right sitting over there.
My name is Shonda Flowers. My address is 6137 Connecticut Street, Merrillville, Indiana. I am the the court administrator, and so when we talk about apples and oranges, to piggyback off of Judge, let's discuss just that. In terms of when you all, according to what you just said, is the 2012, we've been functioning in the red, you can directly correlate that to the amount of tickets that were written in the town. So historically speaking, in terms of under Judge Paris, if you look at the average of tickets that was coming in at that time from the police department, that's less staff then than it is now, you will be able to see that at that time there were over 10,000 tickets that were written. In terms of just the last few years, first off, we've been functioning with our arms tied behind our back because of the fact that we had to sue in order to get our doors back open. So we technically only have ordinances in comparisons, apples and oranges, to when we used to have criminal misdemeanors, infractions, as well as ordinances. We currently do not have infractions or criminal misdemeanors that are able to be filed due to the lawsuit or the pending open lawsuit that we have. So we're fighting numbers that are skewed as a direct result of you all choosing to look at numbers that do not directly tell the entirety with regards to our profitability. Now, in terms of the tickets that were written that at one point went into the whole general fund as far as how the town itself was able to utilize the monies back to departments such as the police department and other departments that did vary, you can look again, starting with 2012, all the way up to current at what those numbers looked at. Now, I challenge you as leaders because at no point have we came to the table and sat down to really figure out what could possibly be done in order to make this court successful. As you guys continue to solicit new businesses, and we're getting that, we're getting additional residents, so now the town is growing, and yet we can't seem to keep up with the tickets that ultimately helps our bottom line as a town. You hear residents that come in here, they talk about speeding in different areas, but there are tickets that's not reflecting that. When you talk about people who ride down Broadway in the way that they drive, you don't see the tickets reflecting that. This is no disrespect at all to the current police chief or his department. But when you have a ratio of 1.6 officers to 1,000 residents that's here, you have to ask yourself, what do you all do as town leaders as to figuring out what's in the best for this town as a whole? That is not a conversation that we've had. Now, it's hard to stand up here because I know personally that some of you all skin crawl with the mere presence of me coming up here because you've shown that. I have no problem, and I've worked in corporate America many a years, and I've never seen where we cannot put our personal differences aside and come to the table for the betterment of this town. Now, although you are choosing to close this court, that's fine. I'm still a citizen of this town, and you will still continue to see my face because I am invested in a community that I thought would give my family a better opportunity. I am a Gary girl, born and raised in the streets of Gary, went to every school that I needed to in order to get to further my education. And somehow I thought, when I thought of raising my kids and I wanted better from them, instead of raising them in the same projects that I grew out of, I aspired to move to this town. Well, now that I look back at where I was raised, I think there were certain things that were put in place. Things such as community, helping each other out. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to help this court. And my question to the leaders is, have you done your part and your due diligence in having a conversation, not with your perception of what our court is, but actually sit down to see what those numbers reflect, to see what can we do. And one of the things I can tell you can start doing is upgrading or amending all of your ordinances, because they're old and they need to be amended to publicly be able to reflect the monies that you would love to see come back into our town. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert L. Buggs, and it's not about the finances, whether it's red or black, as far as closing the decision to close the court. But this town, last I heard, was about 70% black, and you want to inconvenience these citizens that have been here all of these years just to go to Hammond. Now, there was a play once called A Day of Absence, and it was about the slave owners woke up one morning and they didn't have any slaves. So they wanted to get some from the neighboring slave market, so to speak. And this sort of reminds me of what's happening here. We need some over here, so we're going to send them over here. You're not thinking about, did you have a town hall meeting, ask the citizens what they thought about this? You're just making decisions based on, well, I'm going to call it racism myself. Because there's no way in the world, if this was 80% white, that you would close the court. But there's been a lot of decisions made, not based on the needs of the community or the citizens. It's based on a few. And that is wrong. That is wrong. There's no way. How is somebody going to get to court if you don't have public transportation, as the judge said? They don't make it to court. Then somebody possibly may go to jail for contempt of court. Do you think about all those things? Some people are just barely trying to make it. Some of these people may be senior citizens, but the majority of them will not be your color. So you ought to make a decision based on the needs of majority of the citizens that inhabited in the city and paying taxes. But to use an excuse like, we're in the red, we're going to close the court. 50 years ago, you was talking about we want to be a town, we want to be a town with all the amenities of any other township, including a court. But now you're beginning to chip away at all of the things. The clerk treasurer. Never, ever have you had the same situation when you had other clerk treasurers in the town of Merrillville. But now we have a black female, and all kind of changes are being stipulated and talked about, where she can't have her own, make her own decision about her employees as the predecessors. This is blatant. This is blatant. But to close a town court, as the judge said, would you close Dean White Center if it wasn't performing, underperforming? No. But you need to realize of the people that you are inconveniencing and that you are hurting. All of them are black. I'm not going to beat around the bush. They're black. And just a few of y'all making decisions and knowing this and don't seem to care about it. This needs to stop, because now it's getting blatant. And you stand up there and you say, one nation under God, indivisible. What are you doing now? Getting ready to vote on to divide the city. One nation under God, with liberty and justice for all, except the 70% of black people in the town of Merrillville. Thank you.
I'd like to know what the total cost to the town will be for closing the court. An estimate? How much will it cost to close the court?
We don't know that figure.
That would be like me wanting to go buy a new car and picking something out.
No, it's not really, Brian, at all. It depends on how many cases. We're not Hammond. We don't have the volume of cases that the judge alluded to. We're the town of Merrillville.
Oh, the
So
town
they're
of
gonna have-
Merrillville, we
we're
make
anticipating-
decisions. We don't need to care about how much it costs, but we will tell you how much it costs to, the court losing money. We don't really care how much something costs. We make decisions, but you mean to tell me you don't even have a guesstimate of how much it'll cost the town to close the court? When the residents, when the school corporation, when people have been here stating, we want the court. To me, that seems like a pretty important thing. A lot of people are here, we want the court. No one here asked how much it costs to run the court. We have a 1 million square foot warehouse. The first in Lake County. It just took $375,000 to permit that. So that's pretty close to $399,000 that it would take to run the court. So I'm thinking $20,000 for a court, that's a pretty good deal. That's the math that I'm doing. What part don't we get about, we need to consider what the residents want. Not what we personally want or our personal digs or our political maneuvers and motives and whatnot. The residents want the town court. The school corporation wants the truancy court. At what point does that become a consideration for our leaders? Thank you.
My name is Darian Collins. I live on 65th Avenue in Innsbrook. A couple of things. My comment is geared toward the closure of the court, and there's two things I want to say. First of all, regarding the health insurance for the town, at $2,200,000, is Merrillville self-insured, or is that a traditional policy? I would challenge the town to see where they can skim $100,000, $150,000, or look at self-insurance like a lot of other municipalities where they have been able to save tremendous amounts of money on their health care. Now, self-insurance is more risky. You all know what's involved in self-insurance. It takes into account the health history of the employee. There's things that you have to do. But if you stay healthy, you get a little pot of gold at the end, you put it back in, premiums go down the next year. It's a lot more work, but the reward and the risk is better. I would challenge that we look at other areas in the budget and look for some money to be able to save our town court. Now, I think about entities that run in a deficit, and I think about the Genesis Center in Gary. The Genesis Center in Gary was being run with the help of the State Board of Accounts. It was not making money, it was a sinkhole, but that facility provided a vital service for the community of Gary. It is closed now, and there is a huge void in Gary because of it. And Dean and Barbara White Center is getting a lot of money because of it, and I guess that's good because I live in Merrillville, but sometimes you need to keep an entity running for the public good. And I would say that for the town court. $300,000 is really not a lot of money. It's really not a lot of money. So find the money, because the community, the schools, I don't want my son to have to drive to Hammond if he gets another speeding ticket, heaven forbid. I live in Merrillville. Merrillville is growing. Merrillville is prospering. We just heard at the last town meeting how there was this wonderful meeting at Dean and Barbara White Center with Governor Holcomb and Congressman Mervan, and there were all these officials from North Lake County paraded out to look at how wonderful Lake County and Merrillville was for growth. Find the money so we can keep our court open. I don't hear Sherrville talk about closing their court. I don't hear Hobart talk about closing their court. Those are smaller towns, and Hobart's taking a heck of a hit with what's going on at South Lake Mall. They're taking a heck of a hit. And so we can find the money. I agree with what Shonda said. If you want to have a conversation and see how to make that thing work, you can do that. And so our community wants it open, make it happen. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Candace Lilly. I am the Director of Student Services, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Merrillville Community School Corporation. I've been an employee for This is year 19 for me with Merrillville Schools, 12 years as a teacher, 6 years as an assistant principal at the high school. And as an assistant principal at the high school, truancy is one of the major topics that we've had to deal with. Like any school system, any school corporation, truancy is a major issue. And like every school corporation, we have our policies and procedures that we put in place as a district to try to address the truancy issues. We do things like call parents after the third unexcused absence, after the fifth unexcused absence, do things like detentions, Friday schools, in-school suspensions, parent meetings, conferences. And even with that, we still have cases of truancy that persist, that progress to 10 days out of school, 15, 20 days out of school, so forth and so on. There's only so many things that we can do, and so we have found that truancy court has been most effective in catching those cases that we can't seem to address with our policies that we have in place. And so I just want to share a few figures with you. Last year, in the 2021-22 school year, Merrillville Town Court, or Truancy Court, saw 250 cases. That's 250 students that did not respond to the 3-day, the 5-day, the parent conferences, the after schools, the suspensions, the in schools, and the absences persisted. And so out of those 250 cases, at the first hearing where the families were ordered to appear, from the ticket being issued to them appearing in court, there are several weeks that go by. And by the time 100 of those families showed up, there was already dramatic improvement in the attendance to where those cases could be disposed. That means, parents pled guilty and they met all the requirements and the cases were disposed. And this is after we've done everything we could try to do as a school district. And so then you have another 98 cases that were deferred because the parents need to come back again for a little more encouragement. But what we find is that the majority of those cases, even after being deferred, the vast majority of those truancy cases do improve. We see a dramatic improvement in the attendance of those students that if not for truancy court, I don't think we would have been able to reach them. So what I want to implore upon you is to really consider what you're doing. I really hope that you have weighed the pros versus the cons. And if you're talking about closing the court, which does impact truancy court, are you telling me that the cons really is it a longer list than the pros for keeping the court? And I really hope that it's sounding like I just really, did you have that conversation? Were you really exhausted all efforts to find the $300,000 and so to keep the court going? And if so, did you present that information to show how you exhausted all of the, potential solutions to finding that funding? Because I want you to consider without the court, that's 250 kids that may potentially fall through the cracks. I mean, we can, send our resource officers to people's houses and knock on doors and try to reach families that way. But 250 families, that is a lot. And you're talking, in order to be referred to truancy court, you have to have a minimum of 10 unexcused absences. And that's after all the doctor's notes, all the excuses that parents give, and all the things, that we allow them to excuse certain absences. Even then, if you have 10 unexcused absences, that's at least 10 days of instruction that's being missed, and then you compound that over years, you're looking at kids who may not graduate. And then you have kids in your community that may not graduate from school. And so we don't want kids to fall through the cracks. Truancy Court has been a very valuable asset to the Merrillville Community School Corporation. The superintendent is not happy with this being on the table. Neither is the assistant superintendent, neither are the directors of curriculum and instruction, neither am I, neither are the administrators, teachers who rely on this to help us provide resources to hundreds of students every year. Now we have 6,000, 7,000 students in the I'm from Gary, in the Merrillville Community School Corporation. So 250 is still significant. when you think about students who are not coming to school, and it's unexcused. There is no reason why they're not coming. And so we do need, the parents need support. And Truancy Court has helped to provide that. I really hope, again, that you have exhausted all conversations, all possibilities, all avenues for funding, because this is very important. And I hope funding isn't the only reason that you are closing the court. If that's the only reason, and again, I just hope you exhausted all possible solutions, and you're telling me that there's nothing that can be done to come up with $300-something. I just hope that you are making this decision after having done your due diligence and having exhausted everything you could possibly do. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? I'm sorry? We'll close public comment on this ordinance. So this is the first time we've actually gotten some hard numbers on the truancy issue. Thank you for that. I'm sorry?
You could have asked. My office is right down the hall.
Thank you, Gene.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion from the council? Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call.
Councilman Span.
I have to think about it.
Councilman Hardaway. Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Minchuk.
Yes.
Councilwoman Yuzlak.
No, I am not in favor of closing the court. I was involved when the first court opened here with Judge Paris. I feel we have a new community center. We have come quite far. We have way over 40,000 people, and I'm sure we could find some way to keep this court open. My vote is no. Thank you.
Councilman Pettit.
Yes.
Councilman White.
My vote is absolutely not. No, no comprende, all that kind of stuff. Because I'm going to add, I just want to say, no, I still want to add a little bit, if, Mr. President, if I can amend my conversation.
We're actually just voting now, Leonard. If you don't mind, just yay or nay or yes or no would be fine, or abstain or pass.
No.
Okay. Yes.
Councilman Span, back to you.
No.
And Councilman Bella.
Aye.
With 3 noes and 4 yeses.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to ordinance 22-22, ordinance for the appropriations and tax rates for the calendar year 2023.
Eric?
Someone left their phone up here, by the way. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Want to make sure you got that. Thank you, council members. President Bella, just quickly for the record, I'm Eric Sender, representing Sender Dalton.
Speak up a little louder.
Just quickly for the record, I'm Eric Sender, representing Sender Dalton Municipal Advisors, financial advisor to the council. At the last council meeting, Trista Hudson from our office introduced the proposed budget. At that time, you had the public hearing over that budget. Today is scheduled for the adoption for that same budget, as was advertised to the taxpayers. The Finance Committee approved some certain reductions from the proposed budget. Just the general overview of that was roughly $500,000 reduced from the general fund, comprising of various items. And there was also about $600,000 reduced from the public safety from local income taxes. A lot of that was expenditures for the police department that you will need to pay for, but you have ARPA funds to cover those. And so the total budget for 2023 is $46,511,289, with $600,000 roughly of those that we already know need to be covered by ARPA. The ARPA budget is $5.8 million, and that's not too bad considering it's going into 2023 here, and you just received your second tranche of those funds this year. So that's kind of the only few comments I wanted to give, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. President,
Mr. White.
I had a question for Mrs. Cinder. Mrs. Cinder, part of the, are we talking about ordinance 22-22?
Correct.
Okay. I understand the appropriations part, but I don't understand the tax rate part because it's not showing what type of tax rate it is. How much is it? Do you have that information?
Yeah, well, if you look in the columns where the adopted tax rate is 0, that is because those funds don't have any property taxes directly received to those funds. So for your general fund, you have a tax rate because the majority of your property tax receipts are allocated to the general fund.
So secondly, I'd like to ask, with this tax situation here, will that allow taxes to go up on any property tax, or it doesn't apply?
Well, as Trista Hudson explained at the last council meeting, residents may have received increased assessed values on their homes, but the council has not made any decisions to increase tax rates.
Any other questions? Mr. Harvey, did you have a motion?
Yes, sir. Make a motion that we adopt the 2023 budget at the figure. What was the final figure, Eric?
Yes, the total adopted budget is $46,511,289.
That's my motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Pettit, to adopt the 2023 budget as submitted. Any other questions or comments? This is a very specific signature page. I'll ask the council to either vote aye or nay, so we can match exactly the signature page, or abstain. Okay. There will be, I'm sorry? I do want to explain, there's no public comment, although this is a second reading ordinance, because the public comment for the budget was at the last council meeting. This is the only time that we don't have public comment on a second reading ordinance. Is that right, Joe?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call.
Mr. Span,
Yes.
Aye or nay, please, gentlemen, but that's all right.
right.
I know what you meant.
Yes is aye, correct. So I just checked it off. We're asking for ayes or nays just because it is very specific. Mr. Hardaway,
Yeah, aye.
Mr. Minchuk,
Aye.
Mrs. Uzelak,
Aye.
Mr. Pettit,
Aye.
Mr. White,
Aye.
Mr. Bella,
Aye.
7-0.
7-0, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on tonight to resolutions. Resolution 22-68 is a simple transfer of funds. The decrease is $4,500 from CCI and other equipment. The increase is $4,500 into CCI contractual. The net effect is 0.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak, for approval of Resolution 22-68. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 22-69, resolution conforming to the designation of economic revitalization area and approving the deduction from assessed value of real estate property improvements. This was referenced earlier tonight for the Opus Development Company, LLC, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Pettit for a little preference.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk for approval of Resolution 22-69. Anything to add to this, Pat?
No, you don't have to sign.
Do you want the builder to come forward, Mr. Pettit?
I was going to, excuse me, Councilman Pettit, I was going to remind the council, we do have representatives from Opus Development here. I guess you took the time to come. Please take the podium and just give a highlight of your proposed project, please.
Thank you, Patrick Reardon, council members. This will be a 290,000 square foot industrial facility on the corners of Mississippi and 89th. Anticipated construction start is going to be spring of '23. We anticipate 50 to 75 construction jobs to arise from this development, and then as well as 150 to 200 real jobs once the buildings are completed in 2024 is what we are anticipated. So I'm excited to be working with the town of Merrillville, and thank you.
Any other discussion by the council? Thank you, gentlemen. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries. Moving on tonight to the American Rescue Plan accounts payable voucher for the purchases for October 11th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. President. The total amount of vouchers for this evening are $24,031.26. But I make a motion that we approve the American Rescue Plan voucher of that said figure.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Pettit for approval of the voucher as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk Treasurer, is the figure correct?
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to BZA and large gathering actions. Sheila, I know you've been sitting there just eager to get to all these, so you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight for our BZA, our first petitioner would be Commerce Cigar Tobacco. Do we have a representative? Please come forward. Petitioner is seeking a variance of use approval from Section 189-8 to allow Commerce Cigar Bar to have a LED sign on 0.792 acre lot. The digital LED sign will replace the bottom 3x10 with a 5x10 LED sign. The total signage will be 168.3 square feet. It will be used to market company events and products for sale as well as time and temperature. The sign will enhance and beautify the property. It will not hinder any sight lines or cause any unnecessary hardship to surrounding businesses. Petitioner will advertise town events.
Mr. President.
Mr. Minchuk.
This is in my award. They've been a great business in town. They've been a good neighbor. They've always cooperated with the town. Anything we've asked, they've always done. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve, please.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Minchuk. Chair will recognize Mr. Pettit for the second. The only thing I'll add under discussion is that this is on US Route 30 and shouldn't interfere with any residential areas, flashing lights, that sort of thing, so I don't have a problem with it. Anything you want to add about your advertising?
Just cigar events and specials, that's about it.
Okay. Any other discussion by the council? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'll watch for your new sign.
Thank you.
Our second petitioner for the night is Ahmad Zulad. Petitioner is seeking special exception approval from Section 21-136 to allow a used car dealership in a C3 highway commercial zoning district on .39 acres. Petitioner states that the lot was previously functioning as a used car dealership and that they would ensure a safe, well-maintained environment at all times. Petitioner's location is 3112 West 81st Avenue. Petitioner also states that the property already has adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other utilities needed as they will continue to use this in the same manner. Petitioner plans to employ 5 staff members, including himself. A display of a total of 30 cars. Hours of operation will be Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and closed on Sundays. Petitioner has included site plan. Petitioner is aware of the camera ordinance. For this petitioner only, at this location only, and for this use only.
Thank you, Sheila. Mr. President, members of the council, Attorney Adam Swarton here on behalf of the petitioner. What you have before you tonight is an existing automobile dealership owner here in town. Their current location, which if you have the packets from the BZA, is located across from Andrean High School. Been in operation at that location for 4 years. So when the Premier Auto dealership went out of business just west of McDonald's, they saw an opportunity to expand and have had much success here in the town. They want to continue that. And given some of the site constraints for that location and the closing of that other dealership here several weeks ago, it's really a good site for this type of use. There's a small building that's been maintained there. However, the prior owner had some issues with some of the, I think, minor property maintenance and also some issues with the LED lights that are there at the site. So one of the things that was proposed to the BZA, because I think the only issue and concern that we had from staff was some of the light flowing to the east to the neighboring property owner because there's no screening, is voluntarily putting in dark sky compliant LED downlighting. Not only is it in compliance with the town ordinance, but it goes a step further to help eliminate the amount of light spillover that happens from all the automobile dealerships in this corridor. So that's what we have proposed for you this evening. If you have any questions, I have my client here on the specifics of their operation.
You own you've got the one down on 58th and Broadway?
Yeah.
It's still open?
Yeah, it's still open.
Any questions for this petitioner? Chair will entertain a motion. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Pettit.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Uselak. Discussion? I know what everyone's thinking, I think. Another used car dealership, right?
Absolutely.
The thing is this replacing one that used to be there, right?
Correct.
So it's a new marquee, new ownership. The only thing I would question, Sheila, is we probably should have a joint meeting with the Board of Zoning Appeals and talk about the future of town and what we want to see in here and what to do in the future, because you're right, it's another used car dealership. You know, we don't want to see too many of those, obviously, but we can't say no in certain circumstances, of course, legally. But we could certainly talk about it when it requires a zoning change. This is already zoned properly, though, right?
Well, but it's special.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Hardaway,
Yes, sir.
you just asked a question of the petitioner if they own the dealership at the 58th and Broadway, correct?
Right.
And how are they as a corporate citizen within the town of Merrillville?
The reason why I asked that question is because I received a complaint from a lady about their warranty, how they do warranties. And she bought a car and a couple months later it wasn't functioning anymore and they refused to do anything. So that's the reason why I would make the motion and my vote's going to be no, as far far as it goes, because they are not good citizens when it comes to treating the residents here in town of Merrillville with dignity and respect.
Mr. President.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. White.
Yeah, can you give me an exact location? Because I know what 58th is, but I'm just not seeing. I know we have Shaver down on 57th, but can you tell me?
We're right next door to Jiffy Lube at 59.
On the other side of the Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on your side of Broadway.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any questions for this petitioner?
Well, the reason I made the motion, Mr. President, is the BZA made a positive recommendation. So
Right.
to Mr. Svetnoff, if we take no action within 90 days, the BZA action is in effect, correct, by statute?
Correct. But just because the BZA gave a positive recommendation, doesn't necessarily.
We can turn around and deny.
Correct.
Right. And Marge, this is in your ward?
I know, yes. it is.
What are your thoughts? You're the councilwoman.
Well, I'm sitting and thinking about it. How is your lighting over there on Route 30?
So right now, the lighting that's in there is LED, but it's not a cutoff style light. So right now, you basically have a light that illuminates, and there's a lot of light pollution coming off of that existing configuration. So what they're proposing to do, knowing that really the only remonstration we had against this was from the neighboring property owner, which is understandable. There's no screening at all, and it's a residence. There's no fencing, there's no landscaping, is put a light style in that is dark sky compliant, so similar to what the town has out front here, and basically giving options as far as what they can do to control that. So not only from a cutoff style, downlighting, there's no spillover. There were some exhibits that were included in the packet as to how you can literally have the light stop at the property boundary, which in this case would be the edge of the pavement for where the lot's at, where they're going to be displaying the cars. There's also aspects to that from an aesthetic standpoint. There's a whole range of color temperatures. That's purely a visual aspect. Some of those lighting styles have what I'm going to say a perceived intensity aspect to them, like fluorescent lighting in here versus something that's more sunlight, natural lighting, doesn't seem as intense. So those are the types of things that we knew about coming into this that we could easily fix. I know that Sheila had brought up that the prior owner had had some issues with things like snow removal. I guess there was snow getting pushed on the adjacent property. I mean, those are all things that, you know, we have no problem doing a programming schedule or things like that to make sure those don't happen moving forward. But it is in a C3 district, it is in a corridor, it's across the street from all the major car dealerships, so unlike putting this somewhere else in town where we're trying to alter the different types of automobile-oriented uses, I mean, this corridor from just my perspective driving down is the most appropriate for a car dealership.
Mr. President, to Mr. Svetnoff, based on Councilman Hardaway's comment about on the north end, one of the things the BZA considers is the general health, safety, morals, and welfare that the petitioner is bringing. Rich, I'm sure you remember we had a situation, I believe it was with a barber or a billiard up on Broadway right by 53rd Avenue where we gave them a 6-month, the barber, and I believe we ended up revoking that, didn't we, based on performance. That's one way, Mr. President, the rest of the council, we can control this. They're a special exception. We do have the ability, Mr. President, to say no. Just because it's zone C3, they're asking for a special exception. We have to look at those criteria. So what I would like to do, Mr. President, is I would like to amend my motion for approval with a 6-month review. If we hear about something happening like happened up at North Broadway, you're going to be back in front of this council and we'll revoke the special exception. Capiche?
Understood. So that's.
So this is going to be a performance-based special exception if the rest of the council goes with it. That includes the snow removal, any complaints Ms. Uzelak gets from her constituents in Ward 4, or anyone else gets that's buying a car like we had up in Mr. Hardaway's ward. Is that acceptable?
Not my ward, it's Councilman.
Oh, it's
White's
your
ward.
side
But it's okay.
The lady called me.
It's on the same stretch.
Because she didn't know who else to call.
That's the only thing I can come up with, ladies and gentlemen, is that we look at, we have a review. Are we within our rights to do that, Mr. Svetnoff?
You can put conditions on, and if your conditions are to limit, to have a review.
Have a review,
Be appropriate.
performance review of how it's operating.
Let council speak on it.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you guys. Just like Councilman Hardaway said about the lady made a complaint, maybe you need to reach out to that lady. I don't know who it is, Richard. But
They wouldn't, her car broke down probably within 2 months.
Mhm.
It was a battery or something. And when she went back to them to try to get some resolve, they said no. So I'm not gonna change my opinion. So you guys do what you wanna do. My answer, I'm gonna ask that we do a roll call vote, Mr. President, and my vote's gonna be no, because you can't treat people, you know, these people that buy these cars from these types of
absolutely.
dealerships, they buy them because they probably got bad credit or something, and they need transportation, get their kids to school, get to work or whatever. And when people go there, they go there in good faith, and when you don't treat them with dignity and respect, then that reflects on the town, because we're the people, we're the licensing agent.
Mrs. Uszak, would your second stand with the amendment from Mr. Pettit?
Yes, it will.
Okay. Their attorney was going to say something, so I'd like to hear from him.
Yeah, so on the performance aspect, I mean, I just want to be clear, we're going to articulate what that's going to imply, because if we have a customer that goes down and blows out a tire on a pothole, and then they're going to complain to a ward. No, I understand that, but I mean, there's aspects of vehicle ownership that are outside of my client's control.
Now we're gonna start nitpicking. Call for the vote, Mr. President.
Well, we're fine with standards. I'm just making sure that,
Well,
you know.
that some of this stuff is common sense, but if
Sure.
a person buys a car, the battery goes out, the car doesn't start, and they go back and say, I bought this car 2 months ago, and you guys gave me some kind of little Jimmy rig warranty, and now I expect you to live up to it, and when you tell her, no, we're not gonna honor that, then that's not a tire blower. That's somebody that bought a car, battery goes out, alternator goes out, and they did absolutely nothing for the lady. And she couldn't get her kids to school, she couldn't get to work.
Sure, I understand. I can't speak to that because we didn't have that before tonight. We had asked that if there were any other concerns about operations or whatever, channel that through Sheila, and we would address those tonight. But I'm finding out, standing here before you this evening, on one customer, one issue.
I didn't know.
Just one last comment, Mr. President, if you will. If this were to go through tonight, I would just like to, I know we already talked about the lighting. We appreciate your lighting upgrade. I just want you to be aware of the camera ordinance that's in town and your 30-car limit that's on there. That will be strictly adhered to as well.
Understood. Yeah, we're very much aware of the camera. I think they have that at their existing location.
If I make one more comment here, if we remember what happened down on Broadway, when the guy came up with 20-something car, Sheila, how many was it? Originally, the guy down at Broadway, same car lot.
Oh, that was the previous owner. Yeah, he was supposed to have 25 cars.
Say that again?
He was supposed to have 25 cars.
Right.
And he had too many.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables here, ladies and gentlemen, that just don't pass the smell test. I'm sorry.
How many cars do you plan on having on your lot?
30.
We have,
30?
yeah, we have space for 30.
All right. And you would keep it at 30?
We would. We've made that commitment before the BZA, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they've had any issues since they've taken ownership over at the location Mr. Hardwick's identifying with the previous owner.
And you do have an office building right there?
Yes, there's a house that's been converted over the years to commercial use, and that's where the sales office staff will be working. There's just the one building.
Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Councilman Span.
Aye.
Councilman Hardaway.
No.
Councilman Minchuk.
No.
Councilman Uzelak.
Yes.
Councilman Pettit.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
And President Bello.
Aye.
2 noes and 5 yeses.
Motion carries, guys.
Thank you.
Sheila Flaggett.
6 months.
Yep.
Yeah, our next petitioner is Christine Buckner. Special exception approval, 7440 Broadway. Petitioner is seeking special exception approval from section 21-136 to allow a daycare center in the C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District on 2.558 acres. Petitioner states that the primary purpose of the daycare center is to provide a safe and secure environment with qualified teachers so parents can have peace of mind. Petitioner states that they will adhere to the state of Indiana guidelines. Petitioner states that the facility has been operating as a daycare center for the last 18 years, and petitioner will continue likewise. No addition changes needed to be made on or around the facility, as it is adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other facilities. The current ingress and egress allows for appropriate traffic progress and should not change. The daycare center will operate from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. It will employ 13 staff members and can hold 98 children between the center and the home. The center will serve infants to school-age children. Petitioner has purchased the daycare. The fire inspector and the state inspector will inspect the facility following approval of this petitioner. For this petitioner only, at this location only, and for this use only, and petitioner is aware of the camera ordinance.
Mr. President, this is in my ward, just up the street here. If you're familiar, it's north of Cafe Stelios, south of the Legion. I'll make a motion to approve the special exception.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. White for approval of this special exception. Open for discussion.
Do the residents have to be contacted that live around this place?
Yes, we
They were notified.
Yeah.
Public
Were they
hearing was at the
notified?
BZA.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, but I was at that BZA, Marge. There was nobody there, I don't believe, to speak in
Okay,
favor
no-
or against.
Nobody remonstrated
Nobody,
then?
no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. Next petitioner is Reasonable Self-Storage, Louis Aguilera. Variance of use approval from section 21-136 for storage. Petitioner is seeking a variance of use approval from section 21-136 to allow a storage facility in the C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District on 3.9 acres. Petitioner requests a storage facility with outside self-storage for RVs, boats, and etc. The petitioner states that they will only store safe, legal, and non-hazardous material. The site will have security measures with access limited to approved tenants. The plan allows for safe access and egress from existing roadways. The proposed facility will be constructed with quality material and designed with the quality of life for the adjacent property owners in mind. The building will be built in phases. Phase 1 will begin with 100 units. The facility will have on-site office and key code access. The hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The petitioner is aware of the camera ordinance, and it has one condition on it. The outside storage is limited to 150 feet from the east wall.
Thank you, Sheila.
Yes.
Mr. Pettit, I believe this is in your district.
This is it, yes, this is in my ward. I didn't know if Lou and his designer wanted to say anything before I make a motion.
Why don't you give us a little summary of your plans here?
Oh, you go ahead.
So, the property is at 9125 Georgia Street. This is a planned self-storage facility. And the outside storage is limited to the east fence wall, which the east is facing I-65, with potential for boat RV storage, which would be shielded as discussions with Mr. Pettit. We will shield that with fence and either landscaping. That's, can be unsightly at times. We know what that looks like, so we don't want the town to see that. The Phase 1 build-out consists of 100 units, 80 10 by 10s, 10 10 by 15s, and 10 10 by 20s, with future plans as revenue comes into the business to have a Phase 2 build-out of 150 additional units, which would be in the same footprint of what the development will be. So the plan is, in Phase 1, is to develop the parcel, install all the drainage that's necessary to facilitate Phase 2, while Phase 1 is being built. We've had some initial discussions with Mr. Lake that the current infrastructure is sufficient to satisfy drainage in this area, so we don't see any issues with surcharging that system or creating any drainage issues.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the variance of use approval at 9125 Georgia Street.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval.
The only comment, Mr. President, is, again, I was at the BZA, but what we did was we had a Broadfield Homeowners Association meeting, one of my stronger neighborhoods. Gene Chiatovich, the president, organized it. We had it at the Dean and Barbara White Center. Sheila, what do we have, probably 30 people there?
Yes.
They also advertised the variance at the BZA level. I don't think there was anyone that really remonstrated at the BZA level because they answered all the questions during the neighborhood meeting. And trust me, that neighborhood is extremely picky about what goes in and around them. So they were satisfied with what Ms. Aguilar is going to produce out there. I did stress to him the view from I-65. It will be bermed and with either a PVC vinyl fence or 10-foot high arborvitae, correct?
That's correct.
He feels there's a niche with the Broadfield townhomes storage as well as the apartments that we approved for Edward Rose is the market that he is, I guess, trying to tap into.
Absolutely.
So share with us a little bit about your market study and why you think this is a good idea to go where it's going. That's, I think, I'd like to hear something like that. We have the address and the acreage and such in our report, but just tell us a little bit about why you're doing this.
So
Please.
basically, I sold my home and moved to Crown Point, about 2 miles away from the facility,
Okay.
where the proposed facility is. And I went looking for storage, and I couldn't find it anywhere. There's 20 units, 20 different facilities, and I couldn't find any storage.
As far as availability, you mean?
As far as it,
Okay.
yes, So, talked to my wife, and we decided that this would be probably a good thing to invest in. And I had a feasibility study done recently, which I got a B+ grade on it, and the need is definitely there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'd like a roll call vote on this, please, Madam Clerk Treasurer.
Sure.
Councilman Span,
Yes.
Councilman Hardaway. Hardaway,
Yes.
okay. Councilman Minchuk,
Yes.
Councilman Uzelak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilman White,
Yes.
and Councilman Bella.
I'm going to be a no, and it's nothing personal. It's just I'm struggling with used car dealerships, storage units, things like that in town, and this one, particularly close to a neighborhood, I just can't support it. But I wish you good luck in your business. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
6-1.
6-1, motion carries.
Mr. President, our last petitioner for the night is a large gathering permit application from Chris Samowski. Approval for a large gathering permit for the Winter Wonder Lights, 7595 East Lincoln Highway. The dates are November 25th, 2022 to December 30th, 2022. The applicant, Chris Samowski, will host a Winter Wonder Lights Christmas light display located at 7595 US 30 at November 25th through December 30th, from Saturday through Sunday, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Anticipated visitors will be a maximum of 2,000 cars per day, since a maximum of 2,000 tickets sold per day. Security plans will be confirmed by the Merrillville Police Department, as well as fire safety plans by the Merrillville Fire Department. There will be one male toilet facility, one male-female toilet facility to use, which will be maintained by Service Sanitation. There will be one dumpster for trash containers on the outside that will be maintained by Republic Services. There will not be a telephone service available to the public. On-site parking will not be available. No overnight stays will be a part of this assembly. Vehicles will enter through the northwest entrance. They will follow the gravel Christmas light trail, and traffic attendees into waiting lanes at the east side of the property. Everyone will remain in their vehicles throughout the experience. The waiting lines will allow employees to collect entrance fees from each customer. Each lane will then be released one after another throughout the trail in an orderly fashion. As the vehicles drive through the trail, they are entertained with Christmas lights and scenes which are set throughout the property. Christmas music will be heard only on the inside by car radio station. Once they approach the exit, they are directed to depart the event through the south side of the boarding church out to 83rd Avenue. The design of the trail enables an efficient, safe flow of vehicles. The extended entrance trail with the addition for vehicles waiting lane help facilitate large numbers of vehicles, while customers will enter through the northwest end of the property. There is another entrance exit on the northeast end of the property. This will be used as an employee entrance and/or emergency exit entrance. Upon entering, customers will depart to the east on 83rd Avenue.
Mr. President, this again is in my ward. For those that aren't familiar with it, this is it's next to the old Ringo's, where what's the haunted house? Sheila, what's the name of that?
Haunted Hills.
Haunted Hills. I guess my first question is the councilman, and Chris, I supported this last year, and I appreciate you providing a service, but I got to turn to Luther. Chief, I've got some people on 83rd Avenue that were concerned about the Haunted Hills, not so much these gentlemen, because the noise was not that bad. We've repaved and resurfaced and tried to rebuild 83rd Avenue. Did we have any problems out there last year, Chief?
No, myself and my operations commander took a walk out, and actually we walked the total lot, and we observed the exit and the entries, and looked at on property, and we had absolutely no problems.
Okay. Well, we for a number of years, as you guys will remember, Hidden Lake had the Festival of Lights.
Sure.
And that, went away. And again, these gentlemen are providing a service, an event for children and families. So that being said, Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the large gathering permit.
I would make a second, but I would like to know, what are you charging? Per car, per family, or what?
Per car,
How much?
per vehicle. It's $25 per vehicle.
$25 per vehicle? And they drive through and look at the lights?
Yep. It's a little over a mile long, so you're not speeding through it, you're taking your time.
Well, I can't, but somebody else.
Guys, please.
That's a lot of money to go look at lights. I know you, Chris, and I'm sure you're a good businessman, but
So I'd like to ask Mr. Pettit to consider a couple amendments here, and here are my concerns. All summer long, we left up the arches that hold up the lights. What happened then is the weeds grew up all along the arches in several locations along your property. They were never removed. Obviously, you thought about coming back to do it again. I get that. Can those be removed and the property be put back to its original state? Because it looked like you just closed down and left everything there. I talked to Sheila a couple weeks ago. You had the trailer parked in the center of the acreage at a 45-degree angle that took some time to get moved. There's a building going up now. I'm not sure if that's really permitted. Is there a permit for that?
Yes,
Sheila?
we addressed, Mr. President, we addressed everything that you called us about. Dan Brown and myself went out there to discuss the correct way that a building has to be put up, an accessory building has to be put up on a commercial property. You just can't sit it there.
Absolutely.
So, and he adhered, and he also got a ticket for the trailer.
We had the trailer parked there to unload all of our materials. We're a small business getting started with everything, and we're trying to actually, utilize what we can.
The trailer's also kind of a prop for the show. So we don't build a big screen that actually projects, we project videos on it. That was part of an extra prop we were gonna have for this year, and where they can kind of actually see videos as they're turning that corner. So we're kind of dual purposing the trailer, so we don't have to build a big screen. And it's portable too, obviously, because you can move it. Now, that's really where we were kind of going with it as well, and kind of using it as storage at the same time.
Is this your only business now, Chris, or are you still with roofing?
Yeah, this is on the side from my.
This is on the side?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the councilman, when he addressed this question to you, was asking more about the upkeep of the property, and that it was looking unsightly, and that we were keeping these props up all year long. I guess, can there be removal of the props after the show is completed, and can there be maintenance of the property after you stop using it?
So I can try to address that a little bit, we tried to get a couple contractors to cut it at first, and it kind of didn't work out the way we wanted, so we have our own equipment to be able to at least cut the grass, and that's gonna stay low where it shouldn't be unsightly as far as the grass.
What about the arches that hold up
The
the lights?
arches, and that's a discussion that we kind of had, kind of long discussions about it. Well, we plan on being there for the foreseeable future. So the arches are pretty important for us not to be able to need, or at least need to, take down every year, because it takes a lot of labor and a lot of time to do so. And so we are looking to kind of keep them, so then for the years to come, we don't have to deal with that laborious task of taking them down and putting them back up if we're gonna anyways be there every year. So we're not really trying to look to do this just like a one-off, we're looking to do this long-term.
Yet your lease only runs through this next year, right? 2023, I think, was your lease?
No, we have.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that correct, Sheila?
Yes, he has a 5-year lease.
With the option to hopefully buy, so we can continue.
If everything goes well, that's what the plan would be.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. White?
I did have some questions here. I'm glad,
Go ahead,
Marge.
please.
I'm glad, Marge, you asked the cost, because if we're doing 2,000 cars a day, it's roughly 5 weeks, which is about like 35 days times 25. You know how much that is, right?
It's not 2,000 cars a day.
No, yeah,
But
they're
that's
putting
what you
those
said,
limits,
though.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
putting those limits of 2,000 cars a day. We're nowhere near 2,000 cars a day.
I wish.
Well, even if it was half of that, it'd be about $800,000, pretty close to it, right?
I wish
Yeah.
still.
That's
Well,
not it.
500. No, okay. You answered my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I do like the pictures that they're showing with the hidden lights. Sounds good. Looks good.
Thank you. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. We've got a lot of people from the community that said they wanted to make it a tradition every year. So we just want to keep building on that and keep.
We had a couple actually propose there. He proposed to his girlfriend there.
Proposed?
Proposed.
What,
yeah.
marriage?
For marriage, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what you were talking about before.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
All I ask is please be a good corporate citizen of the town,
Absolutely.
Right.
okay? And if you're not, we'll be talking.
Sure.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Any other discussion?
Roll call vote.
Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I will go back to the Parks Department to hear the Parks Department report. I am so sorry.
Thank you.
You don't look like Torrance at all.
No, not at all. But I do want to thank you. He did have a few things he wanted to get out there right quick.
Okay.
Okay, we've partnered with Opportunity Enterprise, who works to maximize self-efficiency to enrich the quality of life of people who have disabilities. A young man named Joey started today. He worked 4 hours assisting with various duties around the center. We hosted King of the Ring, the wrestling event this past weekend. Friday, we're teaming with Stormwater, and we have a few volunteers and park staff. Excuse me, we'll be going to Rosenbaum to plant 30 trees that were given to us by the NIRPC. Did I say that right? NIRPC?
NIRPC? Yeah.
Yeah. And he just asked me, was it fun? Torrance did. And number 4, with the trees, if anybody out in the community want to come meet us at Rosenbaum Friday, I'm going to say Friday morning. We haven't quite got the time yet, but I'm sure by 10 o'clock we'll be out there. So if anyone wants to come out to Rosenbaum and help plant trees, that'd be great. Bring shovels, gloves, boots, and let's get ready to get dirty.
An insurance waiver card, right, Joe?
Yeah, insurance waivers.
Well, I'm glad you guys are planting trees because trees are very effective in removing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And that absolutely helps with climate change, so.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Even though I don't know what kind of trees they are, but.
And that'll be all from us.
Thank you very much. Moving on tonight, is any old business before us? Any new business? Public comment. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. We allow 3 minutes for comment.
This is Darian Collins, 2505 West 65th Avenue in Innsbrook. I'm just going to speak again about the decision of the council to close the town court. The community is very, very disappointed about this. And when I look at the money, I just kind of scrolled back through and looked at some issues. Back in the height of the pandemic, in July of 2021, this council voted to move someone from Kelly White's office, Sean Pettit's wife, to Director of Human Resources and gave her a $20,000 raise. The young lady here was moved from that office and given a $15,000 raise. That's $35,000 in salary increase in the height of a pandemic. That's 10% of the money that we're talking about that we need to continue to run our court. And so again, I'm just expressing my disappointment. You all have voted, but this is not over. We're going to take this issue to the community, and we're going to get people rallied around this. I think about Walgreens. Walgreens overbuilt, no doubt about it. They overbuilt. And I think about Gary, a community with 80,000 people with one Walgreens. Walgreens closed in Miller, and they're forcing those people to go to other communities if they want to patronize Walgreens. So they're propping up the Walgreens in Griffith, the Walgreens in Lake Station, the Walgreens in Hobart. So now you're going to ask our residents to go to Hammond and take care of our court needs and prop up the court in Hammond. Why didn't you work with Hammond and have them come here? And so I'm very disappointed. This is not over. Thank you.
Hi, it's me again, Ernestine Barnes, from residents of Merrillville Lake, which is now up under the ownership of Vista Luxury Apartments. I was here last week, 2 weeks ago, complaining about the things that's going on there. I don't really think anybody know what's going on there in this community here, because it's a lot going on far as I feel that there's certain violations that's not being inspected. The leases is about 40 pages, which it takes a lawyer to really look at. Then we have the elevator that don't work all the time, one elevator, and you have 4 floors, but out of each floor, there's 20 stairs, which is 80 stairs, and they removed us from using the elevator to use the stairs. These are senior citizens that's 55 and up, and we can't even use the elevator to move in or leave if we have to remove ourselves from there. They also doesn't have anywhere where you can have a moving truck that can come and move because the garages are too small, and it can't go into the garage. So you have to walk all the way down to the garage. I have pictures to show you how long this hallway is before you get to the garage. So they have to take up 8 spaces in the parking lot in order to move a big old van. And then they have to lug their furniture on the sidewalk, and it sits there while they have to load on the sidewalk. We looked at the elevator expiration date. It's expired. They do not update their stuff. The fire extinguishers have plexiglass, so if anybody try to break it, it's not gonna break. These are certain complaints we had the last time. Nothing is being done. So you got seniors they scared to come, they scared to say anything because they feel like that they're gonna be harassed. So I'm gonna keep coming, I'm gonna keep doing what I can. Some of them are moving, they receive letters to have 6 months to leave. They're not renewing leases. They also adding things onto their, they have like automatic deductions for your rent. A couple of people have just reported that they went into the portal and changed the portal and took money out of their account. This gotta be illegal. I mean, they're not coming to us, they're not communicating. I'm just at an awe of what's going on with these seniors. It's a lot to me. Abuse is going on. I got pictures. I would like to sit down and show you. I brought pictures before. How they're not upkeeping this place. And they're paying over $1,700. These are seniors. So again, I'm asking if anybody can give me information on what I can do legal or what I can do to stop this stuff. And there are these landlords coming in like this, just going up on these seniors. It's crazy. And these people are moving and have nowhere to go. So that's all. I just hope it's something that we can do and get together and do.
So, Mr. President, I did reach out. They have new owners there.
Yes.
And I did reach out to them requesting a meeting. The lady, of course, is very corporate now. The lady is going to get back with me. I've called her twice, and I will call her again to try to get a meeting set up here in the town. And I put it that we would like to meet the new owners. But the other issues that she did speak on, I will send the fire inspector out on tomorrow. No one told me that the elevator wasn't working or that the fire extinguishers were expired. 2 weeks ago, you just told me that the rent was going up, and so I thought that I would just try and get a meeting with the owner.
Could I just add one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
The handicap parking space, I don't believe is reaching regulations because when you park, there's no way, like if a van come in that has the rollout, it's like a regular parking space. It's real small.
I will
So-
have the fire inspector go out tomorrow. I'll talk to him in the morning.
Let's have Vicky and crew go out also, and
Okay.
Brian Messarch, 201 East 68th Place. As I think about the vote for the court closing, because we don't have enough money, and I wonder why we don't have enough money, We just did a resolution tonight. We voted on giving another tax break. That's probably about $300,000. So you need some money for the court. That's $300,000 of tax break approximately. The million square foot warehouse, they got a 10-year tax break. That's millions of dollars every year. We are struggling as a town to have services. Our branch pickup is being cut down. That was in the newsletter. People are kind of complaining about that. Our public works is just struggling to provide the things that Merrillville used to provide in the past. Our police department needs manpower and equipment. Our police department is at 1.6 per 1,000 residents. The national average is suggested by the FBI to be 2.4, so we're struggling. Last meeting, Assistant Chief talked about how our police department is asking other police departments to send help and, to boost patrols. Why? Because the big multi-billion-dollar corporations are getting tax breaks. When you're looking for the money, that's where the money is. The big dogs aren't paying taxes, and then all these small businesses, you're struggling to find it in your heart to give a small business that has storage facilities a chance, or used car lots. That's sickening. You want to know what a storage facility looks like? It looks like a warehouse, and there are people who wanted to build a warehouse in my neighborhood. That's pretty close to residents. We need to start thinking about the residents and the safety and what's best for the community, not what's best for big business. And saving this town court should be a priority, and we now see that you've turned your back on that. The residents will remember this.
Good evening, Don Kolobowski, 635 East 92nd, Merrillville, 46410. Sean's constituent. I'm not going to be that blatant. The town, my comments are very simple, and I'll keep it short. The administration has done a great job attracting private investment, increasing assessed value, increasing the revenue flow to the municipality. As an economist, I realize that, and I see the growth and job creation and increase in NAV. There were no tax breaks given out today, so I'm not going to comment on that. My final comment is thank you, Chief. The Merrillville Police Department is an excellent police department. I feel safe. 3 years I've lived here moving from Crown Point. I feel safe. My family feels safe. I appreciate everybody on this board and the city administration and the department heads on doing the best they can. And the hard decisions that come across this board, that's why you guys signed up. You guys and gals signed up. But you're doing a good job, and just I appreciate it as a resident that you're acknowledging every piece of legislation, ordinances, resolutions that are coming before you. And we need to continue to grow the assessed value of this community so that we have adequate revenue flow to support our school systems and support the town of Merrillville operations. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Robert L. Buggs. And I don't see that you all made any hard decisions whatsoever. As a matter of fact, this decision that you make, you seem to be relative like it's pre-thought out. But again, I will ask you all, it is your responsibility to look out for the best interest of the majority of the people that lives in the city that's paying the taxes. How can you all get up there and say that you're looking out and being feasible and being responsible, like the speaker before me was saying? That's money, it could be easily found, easy. But that's not the issue. Money is not the issue for the court. I raised the issue briefly. What's going to happen when you got people that can't make it all the way over to Hammond? Then they're going to be held for contempt of court, fine, or jail. Do y'all realize what you're doing, or do you even care? I would think, being the town council president and another member being the same color I am, his race is going to be impacted more so than any other, could vote like there's nothing, then come right around to my respect. Respect. And you're not respecting the 70% of people that lives in Merrillville. Now, I was reading that paper about what happened to the clerk treasurer. And I keep up with what's going on in Merrillville. I remember when they became a township. That has never happened before. And every time I get up, I don't mean to be bringing up race, but there's no other way to put it. There's black and there's white. The white make the decision, the black is getting the impact of it, which is negative in most cases. What happened to the clerk treasurer? That was absolutely blatantly irresponsible racism, sexism. But who made the decision? Did you all have any kind of forum with the citizens that we're going to move the court to Hammond? Or somebody suggests, why didn't Hammond come over here? Now, I wasn't being facetious when I was talking about that play, A Day in the Absence, when they needed some slaves and they had to borrow them from another plantation. It seemed like this is what's happening. They need some slaves over in Hammond, so we'll provide them. Why couldn't Hammond come over here? You look like you all are making decisions without taking into consideration anything about your citizens. And that is wrong. You do it with such ease. I don't know how you sleep at night sometimes. Because the decisions you are making, they're not well thought out. They are not the consent of the majority of the people. So I would ask you all, not beg you all, I would ask you all to reconsider that. I noticed now that the judge is not being very well respected either. It's not my
Finish up,
first time
please.
here. Beg pardon?
Finish up your comments, please. You're over the time limit. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll be back.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Shonda Flowers, 6137 Connecticut Street, Merrillville, Indiana. I hope that you all also consider how this closing of the court will spill over to other departments. So when you talk about code enforcement and the 3 individuals that are there when it comes to writing those tickets, when those tickets go to court, they have to appear. The time frame that we've heard in the past when we were functioning at 100% of officers being pulled off of the street, that time will double as a direct result of a department that's already functioning short-staffed in the first place. When you think about the impact, when you talk about the ordinances, again, although there's not definitive that those cases will go to Hammond, unfortunately, as it currently stands, when you have residents that have been written tickets for, by the Merrillville Police Department, those initial court dates are a year out. Let me say that again. So if you have a expired driver's license or an expired plate, and they drive down Broadway and one of our officers pull them over, all typically they would have to do is just make sure that those are compliance tickets. You come and you show that you have done the necessary steps in order to bring your car compliant. A year is what the county is giving for initial court appearances on compliance cases. That's a long time, when typically they average at the most 3 months. And in an effort to prevent the caseload being heavy when it came to court, they were allowed to bring those cases or copies into the office where they were left for either the prosecutor or either the town attorney. Those are the things that these residents will be subjected to. And I hope that you consider that. And also, just to end, I received multiple calls, as well as Assistant Chief Police Nueces from the superintendent regarding ordinances. One of the issues that we're having, which is how truancy court came about in the first place, because crime was going up during that particular time. In fact, the man was killed over in an apartment complex behind Dunkin' Donuts. It was a school-age child that did the killing, and that's one of the reasons that that ordinance was brought up, in an effort to try to bring the crime down during school hours, is why that ordinance was submitted in the first place. But now you have kids that are vaping, and they're bringing those vapes onto the campus. Is one of their biggest issues. As well as at the elementary level, we have parents that are not picking up their kids after 2 hours plus of school being out. And so everyone is working on a strained staff, and so those are issues that ultimately ordinances could be written in an effort to try to help these families out. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment tonight? Moving on to announcements. Plan Commission meeting will be October 18th at 6:30. Redevelopment Commission meeting will be October 25th at 6 o'clock. The next Town Council meeting is on October 25th at 6:30. Once again, a reminder, Halloween trick-or-treat hours will be from 5:30 to 7:30 on October 31st. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.